So hey, help me put my mind to rest.
I'm losing my self-control.
Everywhere I go,
yeah, you're starting to trickle back in.
it's a moment when I show up, God, I'm staying wild. I can feel your love pulling me up from the underground.
Cross my heart, I won't do it again.
We could be more than this part-time
lover.
Dance for me, dance for me, dance for me, oh. I've never seen anybody do the things you do before. They say,
look what you made me do. I'm with somebody new. Ooh, baby, baby, you dancing with the stars.
bring me a higher love. Bring me a higher love.
I spent 10,000 hours, 10,000 more.
Where's that higher love I keep thinking of?
Guess it's never really over. I'm 100%, keep it moving.
Oh no, there you go, making me a liar. Got me begging you for more. Oh no, there I go, starting up a fire. Don't call me
So you're a tough guy, like you really rough guy. Just can't get enough guy, just always a tough guy. Duh.
I'm a freaking monster, let me be a motivation.
Oh, 'cause I keep taking myself down deeper. I won't stop till I get where you are. I keep running when both my feet hurt. I won't stop till I get where you are.
Well, hey guys, welcome to Midweek Online. Again, we're so pumped you're here. Listen, I just want to give you a quick update. We miss you guys like crazy, but we still don't know when we're going to get to gather together again. So I just want to encourage you, make this time a priority. In a minute, we're about to join Jalen and Chris in a really neat conversation, and we're asking you to engage in that. Here's why that's so important. Until we can see each other face to face again, this is how we be the church. The church is only as strong as the people who are worshiping God together. And so here we are right now about to hop into Midweek Online. This is your moment. This is where we, the church, gather to get together and share the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's changed my life. I know it's changed many of your lives. So let's jump in together as we go to this conversation. Don't forget to comment and let us know we're here. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
What's up, guys? Jalen here, along with Jared Shingleton. What? I did that on purpose. He thought I was serious. So no, I'm playing. This is Cheyenne, and we're just here hanging out. We're just here hanging out. This is Chris. It's a boy. We're just here hanging out, and we're so glad that you've joined us for Midweek. And we have a really interesting conversation that we're going to have today about anxiety and insecurity and uncertainty, and about all these things that's going on right now in our world. We know a lot of you, we're dealing with different levels of stress right now. Some people have stress that's kind of through the roof. Some of us, it's kind of minor. Some of us are more kind of worried about things going on in the world. Some of us about things going on at home. Some of us about things going on in our relationships and our personal life. And we just want to talk about that. We just want to call it out into the light in this conversation. And so throughout this entire thing, here's what we need from you. Please, begging you. We need you to interact with us in this. If the only thing you get from this is us talking, then we're missing something. Because you can find plenty of videos about people talking about anxiety one way, but there's power whenever you engage in this with us. There's something about this whole community coming together and us talking about this together. So whether you're watching this on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you are, interact with us. We're going to put some questions on the screen, answer them, put them out there, put your answers out there. We would love to hear from you. We want to know what's going on in y'all's lives. We miss you guys. And we just want to have this to be a good chance for us to come together as a community. Even if you don't typically come to the Bridge, even if you don't come typically to the Bridge Student Ministry, you still have permission to comment. If you're a parent, you still have permission to comment and just interact with us throughout this entire thing, because we want to hear what you have to say. So with that said, I'm about to give us a couple of opening questions here, okay? About stress and about worry in general. On a scale of 1 to 10, okay? So everybody go to the comments, go to start typing a comment, and pull up on your keyboard is 1 through 0 on there. Be ready to type your number, okay? I got a few things. On how much do these things stress you out on a scale of 1 to 10, okay? On a scale of 1 to 10. So the first one, how much does it stress you out on a scale of 1 to 10 when you make a bad grade on a big test? Where would that put you on the stress level?
Bro, that put me at like a 1. I was terrible in high school and in college. I didn't care. That's not a good thing. That's a very bad thing. I just didn't care. So if I failed a test, it's
Yeah.
I'll live another day.
I think for me, I would probably put it at about a 6.
Dang.
And here's why. I'm dumb, so, I wasn't really that surprised when I was never that surprised when I didn't do well. For me, it was knowing that my mom, if she found out, would get ticked.
And I know his mom.
Yes,
so I believe that.
She's crazy. She's awesome. But I was worried about what her reaction would be. For me, if I could have just kept it to myself, it's kind of like maybe a 3. But knowing that my mom wouldn't be involved, I didn't get grounded a whole lot growing up. But when I did, it was because of grades. Because my mom stayed on top of me about that stuff. So I would probably put that at about a 6 for me, a balance out in there. The second thing, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it stress you out thinking about or planning the future? Thinking about or planning the future on a scale of 1 to 10.
12. Easily 12. I think for me right now it's different and it's like amplified because I just got married.
Yeah.
So I'm just not only planning for myself, I'm planning for another human right now.
Right.
So I think that adds a whole another level of stress and anxiety and all that fun stuff. So
Right. I would say for me, probably like a 3. It doesn't stress me out that much.
That's good.
The future, I think I enjoy it. I like going online and like exploring different places that we could like retire and stuff like that for my wife and I. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't like it. It stresses her out when I talk to her about it, but I enjoy thinking about the future. It doesn't. I'm weird though. I'm really weird.
Where are you gonna retire? West Tennessee?
Probably in like Phoenix. I feel like Phoenix or somewhere in Texas would be nice.
Phoenix?
Yes, it's
The
popping
desert?
right now. Yeah, yes, Phoenix is popping off right now. Shout out to Phoenix.
Shout out to Phoenix. I went to college in Phoenix. I would never go back.
Did you finish?
No, man. There's a reason I didn't finish because Phoenix is.
Okay, well, I'm retiring to Phoenix if you want to know where to find me in 60 years. So the third thing, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it stress you out thinking about relationships? Like relationships with your significant other. So for us, it'd be relationships with our wives. But for you watching this, maybe it's your crush. Like how much does that stress you out? Or maybe take yourself back to when you were in high school, middle school. How much did that stress you out on a scale of 1 to 10?
I feel like back then it was a 1. But now I think it's like a 9 or a 10. It does stress me out.
Yeah.
I think just because I'm in a constant place of wanting to be better, wanting to do better, wanting to just be a great husband and a great friend. So I stress myself out by thinking of those things.
Yeah. For me, I would say it's opposite. In high school and middle school, I stressed out about relationships hard. But now that I'm married, like in high school and middle school, I was probably like a 9 out of 10. But then now I would say I'm probably like a 2 or 3 just because I feel like my wife and I have a really good rhythm right now.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's fine. But I know for a lot of students, there's always that variation. We did a dating series a few months ago, and I sat in with our 6th grade boys. And they were completely like, they were just like, I don't really care about girls right now. And I was like, you probably don't. Yeah, you probably don't because some people they're in different seasons of life. But for me, when I was in high school, I definitely had a 9. But now a lot lower because I got an awesome wife.
That's good. I mean, I should be less stressed now because, I mean, she's stuck with me. Hello.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be stressed.
Yeah. So the last one is how much does it stress you out when you have tension in your friend group? Like if you know there's people within your friend group who are fighting with one another, beefing with one another, there's problems amiss. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does all that friction within your friend group really just grind your gears, if at all?
Yeah, that'll grind my gears on occasion. I'd say like a 7 or an 8. Just because I'm one of those people, I want everything to be good. I want everything. I guess I don't want to sound selfish, but I want everything in like my life to be good. That includes my friend groups and the people I'm around. So I want everybody to be on the same page. I want everybody to be happy and live a good life, and so it does bother me and stress me out a little bit.
For me, I would say it's probably like a 2 out of 10.
Dang, we're opposite on everything.
It doesn't stress me out because my friends, we've known one another for so long. My really close friend group, we've known one another for almost 20 years. And so whenever there's really something you ever like opened up your group chats and there's that kind of conversation going where it's like there's some lines being crossed. We've just known one another so long that I know we're going to figure it out. So there's always fighting. There's literally some sort of argument that goes on every day.
Just get over it.
We just kind of figure it out. We kind of get over it. But growing up, definitely it was a lot more difficult. But as adults, as grown men now, we're kind of just like, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'll be all right. It's probably not very healthy, but it's just the way it is. I don't stress about that too much. So for those of you who don't have your Bibles, we're going to put this on the screen. We're going to open up Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. And some of you may be familiar with this passage, but if you're not, here it is. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7 says this: Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So let's unpack this just for a second. This won't be long. Here's what the Bible says. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind in Christ Jesus. That sounds good, right? We want that. We want the peace of God. Everyone would say, you know what? The peace of God sounds really good. You might not like a lot of what the Bible asks from you, but the promise of the peace of God coming into your life, that's something that everybody wants. So how do we get there? How do we get to the point where we say, I have the peace of God that surpasses all understanding? Well, back it up into verse 6. This is what the Bible says. By prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, make your request be made known to God. So how do we get to the peace of God? By prayer and thanksgiving. So I just want 2 quick action steps from everybody here. You said, man, Jalen, I got a lot of stress going on right now. I got a lot of anxiety going on right now. I have 2 questions for you to kind of take a litmus test of how you're battling your stress. Number 1, what's your time with God look like? What's your time with God look like? And number 2, what does your thought life look like? The answer to those 2 questions will very likely have a huge relationship to the level of stress that you're experiencing. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you a question in regards to this. What do you feel like has been the best thing to come from you spending time with God? Like, do you notice a difference when you're spending time with God, when you're spending time in the Word, and when you're praying every day? Like, does that make a noticeable difference on a day-to-day? And if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to something I've shared a few times when I've preached. I talked about this idea of meeting with God before you meet with this world. And it's something, even for me, it's hard to do. There's days where I'll wake up late, or the first thing on my mind is not God, or to pray, or to read. So the first thing I do is, turn the TV on or something, watch Netflix, or eat breakfast. So it's sometimes the last thing I do. But I notice when I do that, my day seems less scattered, if that's the word.
Yeah.
I feel more put together a lot of times when I start my day that way. So I just, there's so much to it in so many different ways, but I think for most people, you just have to find that rhythm. Maybe that rhythm for you is not the first 15 minutes of your day.
Yeah.
I know I have a lot of friends that they
sure.
do it at night.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day, they'll find a pocket of time where they'll read and they'll pray. So I think the most important thing is finding your rhythm and what works for you.
Yeah. So what would you say your rhythm looks like right now in this season of your life?
Yeah.
Like, do you say you have a good one? Do you wish it could be better? Like, how would you say that's going?
Man, if I'm being honest, I wish it could be better. Because, I feel like a lot of people have more time right now, but you occupy that time with everything but God, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel that's the case for me a lot of days. I'll be doing a lot of different things, whether it's video games, watching Netflix, whatever it is. And so for me, my rhythm, I feel like I want more consistency in my own life.
Yeah.
Put it that way. I can go a day or two, waking up, spending my time with God, but I don't do it consistently.
Right.
So for me, that's what I struggle with, just being consistent with spending that time.
Right. Yeah, I would say the difficulty with my position, and probably yours too, is that so much of our work is with the church that it's easy for my relationship with God to be tied up in my work.
Yeah.
And so then I think, okay, well, I spent time preparing this, right? So then therefore, there was my
Good.
quiet time, but God exists outside of my ministry. And so I have to remind myself of that constantly, is that this isn't my relationship with God. My ministry isn't my relationship with God. It needs to be an overflow of that. So, and I would encourage anyone here, if you're watching this, and if you volunteer in a ministry, and we always say this at the Bridge, whatever you do for God needs to be an overflow of your relationship with Him. Yeah. You shouldn't be, your time volunteering at the Bridge can be a piece of your faith, but it can't be the foundation for which you say, this is my relationship with God. Because you'll burn yourself out. Whether you're serving in kids, you're serving in students, you're serving on the worship team. If you're not operating from a place of being filled in your alone time with God, then you're going to end up burning out. You're going to end up running on E, and you're going to end up in a place where you don't want to be honest. So for me personally, the way that I see spending time with God in my stress is it's almost like if you ever had a sibling growing up, then you know what it's like when maybe if you had an older sibling, they were being mean to you, you would always say, I'm telling mom, or I'm telling dad. And there's a negative connotation that comes with snitching or like ratting people out. And, especially like if you're on the playground, like nobody wants to be labeled as a snitch, right? But a lot of times with our stress, we need to be a snitch in the sense that we need to bring God into that conversation. Because whenever we're snitching, what we're saying is, I'm going to bring in an authority to this. You can't bully me like this. You can't talk to me like this. You can't treat me like this. And I'm going to bring somebody in who's bigger than you. And so whenever we're bringing our stress to God, what we're doing is we're saying, I'm bringing somebody in that's bigger. I'm bringing another voice to the table where it's not just me and my stress battling it out. I'm bringing somebody in who beat death. So my stress suddenly is not such a huge deal in comparison to what he's capable of. And so for a lot of you, maybe that's just what you need to be challenged with, is you need to bring God into this conversation about your stress. You've been trying to battle it out on your own for a long time, and you might be wondering why you're worn out and not getting anywhere. Could it be that you haven't brought God into that conversation? So with that, and this is a question for you guys as well, I want to see what y'all have to say. What keeps you from spending time with God the most? Like, what's the main thing that keeps you from spending time with God?
Yeah, I think obviously for me, there's a ton of just distractions. I get distracted by so many things. And I think back to what you said about ministry, you come to work and you feel like I'm good once I go home.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to shut it down and do this or that. So I feel like I'm just distractions that are in my life on a day-to-day basis prevent me truly from spending that time with God. And I learned something when I first moved down here. Before this, I never would spend time with God as far as turning everything off in silence. And so my version of spending time with God was always, I had worship music going, I had a podcast going,
Yeah.
I had just a bunch of noise.
Yeah.
But when I came down here, I started to literally turn everything off.
Right.
No music, no worship music, man, just nothing.
Yeah.
And I think it's in those moments that I really learned and really understood the power of being in God's presence, but it wasn't until I got there. And but so it's, for me, it's just getting rid of all those distractions so I could get to that place.
Yeah.
And distractions, they look different for all of us.
That's strong. That's really strong. So that covers the first part, is our prayer life and our time with God. And the second thing that we can phase into is our thought life, right? So not only our prayer life, what it looks like when we're spending time alone with God, but also what we're allowing ourselves to, what kind of mode we're allowing ourselves to get into in terms of our thinking on maybe things that we have to be ungrateful for as opposed to the things that we could be grateful for. So why is it hard for us to think positively? Why do you think that's difficult for us to keep our minds in a positive space? For you, why is it difficult for you to stay positive?
Yeah, I mean, uncertainty. I think that's the biggest thing, is uncertainty, what we're literally talking about right now. I think for me, my thought life could truly go down the drain when I start to think of the future, for example, which is uncertain.
Yeah.
And I know whenever I find myself in those moments of thinking about the uncertain things or what's to come or the future, I really have to dig deep and remind myself of what God is doing right now.
Yeah.
Like practical things. What is God doing right now? What is God doing in the local church right now that it's online? How many people are getting the gospel through an online platform now? Think about what God is truly doing now, even in my own personal life. And I think those moments give me faith for what he's going to do in the future. And I can trust that no matter where I'm going, when God's with me, I'm going to be all right.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of what the Bible talks about is just thankfulness, right? That's what this passage is talking about, is thankfulness and remembering what God has done, and not only at the cross, but in our lives. So for you, how often would you say you remind yourself of positive things? And there's not a right answer to this, but for you, how often? Are you good at that? Are you not so good at that?
I have to do that daily.
Yeah.
I have to do that daily. I think for me, I always have to remind myself of what God has done in my life, because that will give me a spark and some faith for what he's going to do. So I think that's simply answer your question, is daily, every morning, as much as I can. I have to remind myself what God has done in my life.
And so, well, for me personally, a lot of the strength that I have to operate day to day comes from remembering how good God has been to me.
Yeah.
Like, I never want how God has blessed me to get old to me. And so whenever I want to get into a spirit of worship, one thing I'll do is I'll just start remembering really the miracles that I've seen happen in my life and in my family's life. And I remind myself of how good God has been to me. I never want to forget. We see all the time in the Old Testament, the Israelites were constantly forgetting about what God had done for them. So then their faith would wane, and God would get so frustrated with them, or maybe not frustrated, maybe it's not the right word, but he would look at them and say, man, why do you keep forgetting? You know, it's like the new song that we put out through Bridge Worship, Have You Forgotten?
Yeah.
Like, have you forgotten the work that's been done? Like, have you stopped considering what it is that God did for you? And could that be what gives you the strength to say, look at how good God has been to me in the past, therefore I know he's got a good track record, and I can trust him. He's not failed yet, so I'm gonna be all right. So for you, maybe just share with us, and we want to hear you as well. Listen, there's power in you sharing what's going on, how God has blessed you. So right now, what do you have to be really grateful for? Like, what's going on right now that you're like, man, I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity in life?
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, the obvious answer is my health. and the health of my wife and the health of my family members. I think that's something I'm just, like most people, just extremely grateful for. And just the essentials, the basics, the fact that I have somewhere to live, food to eat, when there's a lot of people that don't have those things. So I'm just grateful for the space that I'm in and the season that I'm in right now.
Yeah. I would say there's a lot of things. I'm grateful for health, like you said.
Yeah.
I've had some family members who've battled like cancer, maybe some heart issues over the last few years, but God's been faithful to us in that.
Yeah.
And even if it didn't turn out the way we wanted to, he'd still have been faithful anyway.
Yeah.
But we've just been really blessed with a lot of health. I have a great wife. I have a great life. I love the people that I work with. I love my job. I love you guys. I love the students. So I just feel like I'm in a really sweet spot in ministry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever watched The Office, but there's that really emotional part where like, I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days when you're in them, you know? It's really sad and kind of like corny maybe a little bit, but you really don't realize how much you're going to miss the season of life that you're in. You know what I mean? But because you just get so worried about little things that a lot of the things that you're stressed out about, that you and I are worried about, we're going to look back on in 10 years and we're going to be like, man, I had so much great things going. Like I had so many good things going on every day. I wish I could have just taken the time to just settle down, relax, and be like, man, I have so much to be grateful for in this season of my life. Okay, so just to close this out, 2 things, prayer and thankfulness, or thinking on things that God has done that you're grateful for. And here's the thing, praying and spending time with God and having a grateful spirit, those 2 things will not erase your problems. It's not a magic switch that you hit that makes your problems go away. That's not what we're saying. But what it does is it provides your stress some context. It starts to put things in an entire frame of context, because what happens is we end up just staring in the face of our stress so much. But what really getting time with God and what a grateful spirit does is it gives that thing, it doesn't necessarily make it go away. It's not going to make the coronavirus go away. Right? We can join hands and pray right now, and the coronavirus is not just going to stop overnight. Or, I know families are struggling with joblessness. That's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be settled overnight. But what it does do is it brings God into the conversation. Yeah. And that's the heart of what we're talking about, is bring God into the conversation of your stress and see if things don't change a little bit for you in terms of the way that you feel and the way that you operate and the strength that you operate in on a day-to-day basis. So